Welcome to our meeting, Mr. Bethune.
Hello, how are you?
Very good, thank you.
Yeah, nice to meet everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My request again is to, the letter was written. I'm not sure if that has been passed around to everyone. The primary request is to have the entrance of the road fixed up to the east of Steve Lomas's driveway. Right now, the driveway starts on, right now, Side Road 5 North starts on the driveway, which is misleading and confusing. And I understand why there's a driveway for Mr. Lomas because of the culvert washed out, but it makes it difficult for farmers to enter my property, my farmer to enter my property to work his land. And that's issue one. Further to that, when they redesigned the bridge and the road for the new bridge, they've created this new road that is unnamed. I'm asking for it to be extended. It's in the image of the letter. I'm asking for roughly about 15 meters of road to be made, that new and unnamed road to be extended. Anyway, that new and unnamed road serves no taxpayers and actually has led to squatters with trailers on that laneway, which is, so anyway, all I'm asking is that road is to service Side Road 5 North, just to switch the entrance. If the drawings weren't clear, I'm happy to answer any questions. Also, the issue is of road maintenance. I'm not asking for winter maintenance. I'm only asking for gravel to be laid down up to the actual fire number. About an hour after I sent the letter to the council, the fire department came out and said to me, they had no idea the fire number was there. They had no idea the cabin was there. And they had legitimate concerns about getting their vehicles back there. Those are really the two issues. I feel like my letter was more articulate than my speaking here, but anyway, I welcome your response.
Okay. Questions from council for Mr. Bethune?
Mayor Peabody, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Councillor Adams.
Yeah, hi, Mr. Bethune. I have a question. I saw the property and I was wondering where it was that you were hoping to get an entrance onto 5, because it slopes as you go east, it slopes quite high. And
right
there's a pretty major cut and fill in there. Where were you thinking relative to the current driveway, the concreted driveway, now that you were thinking there would be a new access point?
I believe the letter had the image. The red line is kind of where I was drawn. If the letter's in front of you,
yeah, I did see it, but it's really hard on a letter when you get actually on the property and you see the slope and the height of it. Where is it relative to that high point, if you will?
Yeah, the high point is not. I understand that. That's ridiculous. I wouldn't want it there. It is immediately east of Steve Lomas's property. You can, where that new and unnamed road is, across Brand Eldersley Town Line, north of Brand Eldersley Town Line, there's that new and unnamed road. If you were to walk straight south across Brand Eldersley Town Line, that's where I would want it, which lines up perfectly with the east line of Steve Lomas's property. The steep incline you're mentioning, I agree that's out of the question. That would be impossible for anyone to navigate, but that's closer to the river. Where I'm talking about it's quite reasonable. You could literally push the existing hump over a culvert and flatten the road. It would be not a steep incline at all. But yeah, if you have the map in front of you, it's the eastmost line of Mr. Lomas's property.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mayor Peabody. Through you, Mark. Thanks for coming tonight to present this.
Thank you.
What is, in your opinion, the issue with the current entrance?
First off, farm access. Second of all, it comes off of someone's driveway, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that's probably unique, well, the world over, for an actual street, a registered, municipal side road to start on someone's actual driveway. Now, I understand it is still within the road allowances. That's the response I've been getting. But these road allowances have been drawn up, I don't know how long ago, and they've shifted so much with the new bridge. I'm literally asking, in my mind, I look at all the work that's been done, and all I'm asking is for this small little amendment, which is a small percentage of the actual work that's done. This would just be a finishing touch.
I guess that the farm access, I guess, was my biggest question on, I guess, for equipment going in, Mark, and so that access, Mr. Lomas is your neighbor. There's lots of accesses across the municipality. This isn't unique to you in any way. So anyways, and the emergency service end of it, I don't see any issue in this either. I don't, based off your letter, your letter wasn't a sell to me in any way, Mark. No disrespect to you, with all due respect. I don't see any issue with what we have in place already for you, for your piece of property down there, and I don't see spending taxpayers' dollars to add an area that is already there that is already on municipal land. So I don't. I appreciate
disagree wholeheartedly.
And that's fine. And I'm just going to tell you my piece on it. And I disagree wholeheartedly on the letter that you sent, because it wasn't selling for me. So I appreciate.
Can you give a reason why?
The tone alone in your ask was negative, and there's already access on municipal land to your property. It is not responsible to me to spend more money to add an additional access 100 feet east to do the same thing. And that's my take on that. And you'll have your own opinion on that. And I appreciate your time in selling it tonight, but that's my take on tonight. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Further questions from council?
My tone, sorry, am I allowed to speak? I don't know the procedures here, but what does my tone have anything to do with? I'm a taxpayer. I've paid taxes longer than five of the 6 neighbors.
All right. Well, usually, Mr. Bethune, I don't let people really, people make a point and then we don't have debates here. It's not really,
Okay.
don't allow it with, try to cut it off with council members as well as delegates. Make your point, and then we move on to the next person, and Deputy Mayor Gierzak has his hand up.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Peabody. And it is my understanding through you to perhaps Greg, that Greg seemed to be recommending that if we were to go ahead and do this, that it would be Mr. Bethune's responsibility to bring that 45 feet of road up to municipal standards. Is that correct, Greg?
Yes.
Through Mayor Peabody to Deputy Mayor Gierzak, that is correct. That is what our past practice has been. As the same practice as what Aaron Eldersley also has, who has a joint interest in this particular road.
Okay.
This is not unusual for us.
Okay, thank you, Greg. And if I may, Mayor Peabody, through you to Mr. Bethune, is that something that you're interested in doing? I don't, perhaps his screen is frozen, but his,
Frozen. Did you hear the question, Mr. Bethune?
No, I did not hear. Was that directed at me?
Yes,
Ye-
from,
ye-
Deputy Mayor. Yes, go ahead again, Mr. Deputy Mayor Gearza.
thank you. Yes, Mr. Fortney just indicated that it's standard practice in this type of a situation for the property owner to bring that piece of additional roadway up to municipal standards at their own cost. Is that something that you're interested in doing?
No. We've invested in the past for our own to make it usable, but that's something we're no longer willing to do, just considering the amount of money that went into the neighborhood. I mean, and just last year, you guys did half, you put gravel down on half the road, but not the rest. And we weren't informed in that process. I don't see a rhyme or reason to that. Anyway, I understand, yes, I've been told that I have to do it, but that's not something we're willing to do.
Okay, thank you. It's always been a concern in terms of gravel roads that historically they may not have been brought up to municipal standards, and it creates a long-term problem for especially large farm vehicles using those properties. So thank you, Mr. Bethune.
Okay, any further questions from council? Okay. All right. Okay, Mr. Bethune, thank you. We have a report later on in the meeting at 7.6, where we would actually vote on the request. Have you read the report?
No?
From staff? Okay. It's report 7.6 prepared by Callie, who you've been communicating with on this. So we'll that's under our meetings under section 7. We have reports from staff. So
Reports from staff.
Mayor
That's
Peabody.
on your website?
Yes, through you, Mayor Peabody, I'd be quite happy to email Mr. Bethune the link to the published agenda so that he's able to read through that report, which, as you've noted, does have a motion coming later on this evening after the other 2 delegations that we do have planned as well.
okay.
Thank you, Callie.
Okay. Yeah, Kelly, Fiona will send that to you, Ms. Hamilton. I'll send it to you right now. Okay, so that we'll wrap things up then and move on to our next delegation. 4.2, Emily Morrison, Launchpad Executive Director. Ms. Morrison there, do I see you there on the? Oh,
Hi.
Hi, welcome, Ms. Morrison.
Thank you. Okay, I have a PowerPoint presentation, so I'll share my screen with you. Oh, you gotta start changing.
There it goes.
Would you like me to share your slides for you, or whatever is easiest for you?
Yeah.
Happy. Oh, you have it now. That's okay. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, you all ready, Ms. Morrison? Yeah,
Perfect.
great. Okay. All right, go ahead.
Okay, so thank you very much for giving me the chance to speak with you tonight and hang out with you tonight. I'm really excited to be able to share with you today an update on Launchpad, how that impacts the youth of Brockton, and kind of what we're looking at towards the horizon. So if you don't know who we are Launchpad, located in Hanover, and this is our oh, there we go. Our building we're right across the road from Tim Hortons on Main Street in Hanover, and our focus is for youth 12 to 18, where they can come after school and explore various opportunities. We have a wood shop, we have a culinary kitchen, we have a technology lab with 3D printers and coding and music production. We have a welding shop that is our most popular program. We even have an all-girls welding shop. And in light of COVID-19, when everything shut down, our mission is really to have youth learn and explore the skills that are for careers needed in our community. And that's why we specifically focused on the trades. And it was really important to us to maintain that strong hands-on learning experience. Our instructors, our volunteers, current and retired industry professionals that are right in the thick of our industries and that can translate those skills needed in our community. And so we really felt that that was really important to maintain through COVID. And so while we were shut down during COVID, what we did do is launch a podcast where it's called What's Your 9 to 5, where we go on and interview super cool people in our community that have super cool jobs and learn about what it took for them to get where they are today, the schools, the path that they went down, so that our youth in our community who might want to be an electrician one day, might want to be a hairstylist one day, might want to be an engineer one day, can go through our podcast episodes, pick a career that they love and hear how did that person living in Grey and Bruce, how did they hear about and how did they come to their job that they're in today. So those are, that's a quick update about Launchpad, and we've just started again our after school programs. We're open for youth Monday to Thursday. And so you're probably thinking that you're located in Hanover. Yes, we're located in Hanover, but all youth can come no matter where they're from. And specifically for our youth in Brockton, through the County of Grey, we all came together and have transportation dollars for youth in Brockton. And I'm really excited to announce to you today that we've been able to extend that funding for youth in Brockton to come get a free ride to Launchpad, to take after school programs at Launchpad until 2025. So the original grant we had to offer transportation was in 2023. And so we've been able to extend that to March of 2025. So what does that mean? It means any youth signed up for an after school program is able to get a free ride to Launchpad. So we'll have a shuttle waiting outside that youth school at the end of the day, pick them up, bring them to Launchpad to take their after school program, and then we'll take them back home again at the end of the night. So we're really excited that we're able to continue to double down on that transportation to ensure that the youth of Brockton are able to come to Launchpad, because no matter where you live, we want youth to come and experience all the after school programming that's available at Launchpad. And so again, we're really excited because we actually have become a co-op destination place for youth during the day. So we really want youth to go to school and then come see us after. But we know that there is so much opportunity in different program styles to be able to leverage the equipment we have at Launchpad. And so we are now a co-op placement. Youth come and do 4 weeks in the welding shop and 4 weeks in the wood shop. And so then they're able to try both the trades out and figure out which one they like better over the other and potential employers in our community. And so we're really excited that we do have youth from Sacred Heart coming to Launchpad and doing their co-op placement during the day at Launchpad. So that's a really exciting thing that we've been able to add for this semester. And so one of the other COVID-19 things that we did was we created a social enterprise. And so what does that mean? That means we created, it's a revenue generating organization whose objective it is to have a social impact. And so this summer we rented an ice cream truck and we stuck it on the parking lot of our youth center. But what we did is we hired 7 youth, 3 from Brockton, and we said to them, look, this is your business. You are now entrepreneurs. So it was their job to come up with a name. It was their job to come up with the logo. They decided where they were getting their ice cream from. And then you can see there beautifully featured is our ice cream sandwich. They even decided to buy those cookies from another youth in the community. So again, the social impact of that ice cream truck was to give youth their first time job, but then also to have them become entrepreneurs, have them own and operate that business. And if there was any profits at the end of the summer, reinvest them back into the after school programming. And so it was very cool that these youth were able to, ice cream is as simple as scooping ice cream, but there's so much business principles in that, from the marketing, from cost of goods sold. And they were able to go the entire summer. And it was a pretty sad day when the ice cream truck left that last week in September, but it was super exciting, the learning and the opportunity that came from it. And so now I'd like to share with you our next project that is social procurement. And so social procurement is a global movement that occurs when governments buy goods and services with additional benefits from social enterprises. And so what that means plainly is that it takes the buying power, and you can choose to buy from social enterprises. And so that's what we're here to share with you today, is that over the last summer, what we've done is we've piloted different products that we have created in our wood shop, in our welding shop. And we're here to say that if you're ever in the need of buying a picnic table or buying a bike rack in the future, that you would consider buying it from us here at Launchpad, from the youth in their training programs. And so that's what the co-op students are doing in their program. They're here to build the picnic tables, they're here to build the bike racks, but on top of that, they're here to learn and work together. And so you can see featured in this photo is a wheelchair accessible picnic table. And in the background there, garden boxes and flower boxes that beautify Neptune scoops in the parking lot. And so no longer does a picnic table just be a picnic table anymore. But when you combine that picnic table with our training programs, youth are learning skills that are needed in our communities with local employers. Youth are learning about the safety principles of that equipment that they're using. They're learning the language, but then at the same time, youth are learning teamwork. Youth are reinvesting back into their community. That is the fundamental principle of youth work. If you can almost build that relationship between a youth and the community, if you can have their picnic table being utilized at the local park, every time that youth drives by that park, they'll tell everybody in that car that they built that picnic table, and they'll create that engagement with our community. And so the hope then is that at the same time, we're mitigating youth out migration, and we're keeping our youth here and showing them the great opportunities that this community has for our youth to keep our rural communities vibrant and alive. And so we've already got some current contracts locked down. Grey County Sydenham campus, they've bought bike racks off of us. North Burst Peninsula, we've been working over the last couple of days. They're hoping to increase their accessibility standards within their municipality by buying wheelchair accessible picnic tables from us. So we're starting to make this happen. We're starting to build and be of service to those in our community. So we're really excited to be here today to share with you all the exciting updates at Launchpad, and that if we're ready to engage, and if you need anything moving forward, we're happy to share our product list. But then also, hey, if you need anything built, you should totally think of us, because we're able to do pretty much anything, I think, with this great team of you. So thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer some questions for you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Morrison. And thank you for all your advocacy on behalf of youth. Lots of exciting projects there. Councillor Hutchin.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Great presentation. I know my grandson has participated at Launchpad. My only question is, you talked about transportation. Are the children returned to the high school, or are they actually escorted to their homes?
So it's whatever the parent feels comfortable about. But yeah, if they live in town and close by, we can drop all the youth off at one location, and then they can go from there. Or if the parent feels comfortable, and if it's easy to drop the youth off at their home, we can try and make that work.
That's awesome. It's a great program. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Elphick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to Emily. Thank you so much for coming to the meeting this evening and sharing this exciting news about the Launchpad. I myself have drove through Hanover many times, seen the facility, but never really understood what was going on. So it's excellent to hear that, and very insightful for the impact it's having on the youth of our community. So I think that's wonderful. I just was wondering if you could share with us what we do see from a demographic coming from Brockton to the programming, and what other programming opportunities might be on the horizon for the Launchpad.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, our main cohort is 12 to 18. So we're seeing that youth come both in the after school programs and then also, like I said, during the co-op programs. A lot of females are coming over from Brockton, which is really exciting. They say females make the best welders too, if anyone out there is listening and thinking about a career path. But yeah, and you know, that's been a lot of my work over the last couple of years, is how can we utilize this space during the day while youth are in school to kind of radiate the programming and the infrastructure. So different opportunities about field trips. We're trying to become a field trip destination for youth in our communities, so that they can come and spend the day with us, and then kind of explore all that we have just in one jam-packed day. And then at the same time, we're working into trying to get new things. Right now, we've got welding, culinary, and woodworking. It's my goal to try to get electrical really soon. I've seen some super cool training electrical. So trying to get that to Launchpad, and then seeing how we can go out too, because I know another big push of mine is getting us out into the schools and us out into the community, and not always asking for youth to come us. Let's us make the effort to go to them. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Further questions, Deputy Mayor Gierzak.
Thank you, Mayor Peabody, and through you to Ms. Morrison. Congratulations on all the great work that you've been doing. I was aware of the Launchpad and involved when it first got off the ground, and certainly toured its predecessor. I think that was in Tillsonburg or somewhere southeast of London a number of years ago. So I remember being there with the Mayor of Hanover and Deputy Mayor as well. So it's great to see how far you've come. And hopefully there are things that we can find to purchase from the Launchpad. And I am thinking of some of those, some picnic tables and that sort of thing. So we'll leave that up to Mark Coleman and Parks and Rec to think about that. I did have a question with respect to the ice cream truck. Is that something that's going to be in place again next year? And is it something that travels if we're having, you know, an event in Walkerton somewhere or within our municipality somewhere? Could the ice cream truck travel to those events and perhaps spread the good word about the Launchpad and also sell ice cream in the meantime?
Yeah, no, thank you. Yes, so this year it didn't move anywhere. We wanted to kind of de-risk it, and we didn't know how that was going to go with insurance and drivers and all that stuff. But so right now we were able to get some extra funding to kind of have a consultant come in, interview all the youth, see how that went, and then look at all of the financial statements and things like that. And I know that was a huge barrier to us as not moving. And so and then we definitely saw quickly which were our busy days and which were our slow days. And so it kind of gave us the opportunity to, hey, on those slow days, we should be out in the community moving around and going around. And then on those busier days, maybe keep it stationary at Launchpad so that people can learn about Launchpad while they come for ice cream as well. So yes, I would love to have it come back again, absolutely, and maybe even build our own. It doesn't have to be like, it could be a wagon trailer kind of thing with a pull behind or something, but definitely know that next year we have to make it movable and we have to incorporate that into the idea.
Okay, thank you. Further questions? Okay, all right. Well, thank you very much, Ms. Morrison, for keeping us updated. You got a very positive response from council, so that's great. So look forward to more great things next year.
Okay, thanks for your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, on to delegation 4.3. We have Mr. Van Dorp, Bruce County Manager of Land Use Planning, and Ms. Harrison from North South Environmental. We've already got their slides up. Mr. Van Dorp, who's going to start the presentation?
Great. Thank you, Mayor Peabody and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to come and speak to you this evening about the Natural Legacy Project. The Natural Legacy Project is one of the 8 guiding principles topics that we're using as foundational background work to support a new official plan. And the full list of those is outlined in Mr. Weltz's report, which is your item 7.1. So I won't go over those, but the focus of the Natural Legacy Project itself is about ensuring that our natural environment is protected and balances our current needs with the greater good for generations into the future. This is a project that sees 4 steps. So the first step, which we've completed, was to understand the natural legacy in Bruce County and the information we had available. And that helped us to prepare something we call the mapping discussion paper. And the second piece was to work on setting targets for natural legacy features and areas that can be identified in a natural environment system. And that natural environment system as a whole consists of both the natural heritage elements and the water resources elements. The third step, which we're currently involved in right now, is around identifying and engaging on an approach and options to help us meet our targets, and also to identify policy directions that can support implementation for the natural environment system. And so the project is not something that we just sort of cooked up ourselves. It's rooted in the provincial policy statement. It draws from the current county official plan. It brings in considerations of the Bruce GPS report, which identified those 8 guiding principles. And it also, in the northern part of the county, draws on the Niagara Escarpment Plan, which is a provincial land use plan for portions of the peninsula. So that's a bit of some of the context. And what we heard about in the Bruce GPS, which is really what gave rise to our Natural Legacy Project, is just about the rich natural resources of Bruce County and the need to manage them in order to ensure that they're sustainable for the long term. That includes finding out where they are located, mapping them, and understanding what they need in order to be maintained on the landscape, and then thinking about different options for how they can be managed, and setting up the plans that will ensure that all of the combined effects of change that we anticipate encountering over the next 25 years, which is the lifetime for an official plan, and then beyond, will persist. And that the changes preserve the natural assets and also positively impact our future. And then lastly, a concern, certainly not the least of our concerns, is to ensure that we address concerns of property owners related to how changes in policy and zoning and implementation tools can affect their rights and values and interests in their land. With that, I'm just going to turn it over to Kristen, and she's going to review some of the highlights of our natural legacy and some of the questions we've been pursuing.
So certainly, as residents within Bruce County, and for anyone who's visited Bruce County, one of the key draws is its natural heritage and its natural legacy. There are an abundant number of features, and some of the most spectacular, certainly in Ontario, and obviously world renowned as well. It has a strong representation, particularly compared to much of Southern Ontario, in terms of still having intact and quite extensive natural heritage, with about 12% or 13% combined wetland cover. That does fit within guidelines for having good wetland cover, so that's a good measure already. In terms of woodlands, we do see that there's quite a disparity between Northern Bruce County and Southern Bruce County, which is obviously reflective of land use history. But overall, there's 36% cover, which is, again, quite good at a municipal scale. There's over 54,000 hectares, sorry, I was going to say acres, it's a big difference, of conservation lands within Bruce County. And across the county, both north and south portions of Bruce County, we've got far more than 2,000 species. That's probably quite a conservative number in terms of plants, animals, insects. And of those, there are 62 species at risk that call Bruce County home. We've also got sensitive habitats, and one to highlight are alvars, which are globally rare and recognized as having diverse species, and they do support a large number of species at risk that occur within Bruce County. There's also many other areas that are popular for and important as bird areas, such as the Huron Fringe and Cabot Head as well. With all of that in mind, we can see quite evidently that discrepancy or that difference across natural heritage in Bruce County. And you can see that on the map on the right-hand side. To recognize this difference, we did approach the natural heritage system and the natural environment system with consideration for whether or not we needed to have the same approach, or if we needed to consider the different geographies that were present. This has to do with land use history, but also, of course, the fact that there are differences in the geographies, ecozones, and also geology and other factors that are influencing both the species that are present, as well as the cover that remains on the landscape. Because of those different approaches, we are considering slightly different approaches to policy implementation as well that will reflect a little bit later in the presentation. For Southern Bruce County, which has a far more spread out components of the system, we've suggested a features-based system. Now, I think we have to be careful. Sometimes people hear features-based, and that's an old approach. We're still looking at the area as a system for the natural heritage. And the intent there is that we're identifying key and supporting features. Key features are those that are the largest on the landscape and ones that we deem to be the most sensitive and or the most important for maintaining biodiversity, maintaining connectivity on the landscape, and to preserve the ecology and biodiversity on the landscape. Supporting features are features that are in close proximity, maybe smaller, but still offer important features and functions. And those become together the system as a whole. We then connect the system with linkages, because we can't isolate features entirely on the landscape. We need things to be able to move and transition, especially as we look towards long-term and climate change impacts. That becomes increasingly important. This approach is most often used where there's lower natural cover, which is why we've identified it for Southern Bruce County. For Northern Bruce County, because we have very large natural cover, we've suggested a different approach. We still go through the process of identifying key and supporting features because they are required to be identified as part of the provincial policy statement. However, not all of them are necessarily going to be within what we call the natural heritage system. The idea here is that we use other metrics to define what the system should look like as the boundaries. We identify those as core areas. For the purpose of Northern Bruce County, what we've suggested is that we use some keystone species, so black bear, as an example, because they need large areas to move and to continue to persist on the landscape. When also looking at Massasauga rattlesnake, again, because they are a species at risk, and also because they need diverse habitats in fairly large areas. The intent behind a core areas approach is that we have these larger blocks that include features and also the intervening landscape. And then we connect those with linkages across the landscape to, again, maintain that connectivity. The intent is that within the core areas of the natural heritage system, policies may be slightly different and they could be more restrictive, and then outside of that, we have less restriction for certain areas, so that we were focusing our development outside of those areas and encouraging more restoration and protection measures within those to the extent that's appropriate and reasonable. This is best applied, as I said, in areas where we have extensive cover, because we only need a subset. Within each of those, sorry, Jack, I threw you off there. Within each of those, we have a series of options. So those are the basic approaches, but the options are really what we wanted to consult on as well. We know that there's a minimum policy compliance, which is what's put out by the provincial policy statement. And then from there, we can move all the way up to what would be a much more natural heritage forward system, or what we might term the most resilient system. At all scales, the intent is to meet the PPS and ensure that we do that as a minimum. To the extent that is directed by members of the public, as well as other stakeholders that we engage with, and First Nations input and Indigenous input, we want to receive feedback on what option best suits the direction for Bruce County and its natural legacy. Option 1 is a more basic system. Because natural legacy is such an important pillar within Bruce County, we did not go with the bare minimum in terms of compliance, but option 1 gets us much closer to that, but is reflective of what we see on the landscape and best practices. Option 2 builds on option 1. It is a slightly more robust and resilient system, so we pick up more features as being key features. And then if we move towards option 3, we're really then looking at the kind of the largest, most resilient system. So we're picking up more features as being key features. There's also larger linkages and more direction around enhancement and larger enhancement areas identified as potential enhancements for implementation. For the water resource system, we have a single approach. There's really not a clear difference, either because of the data that's available and also in terms of fairly early direction for water resource systems in Ontario. Water resource systems are important because it is everywhere. We live within our water resource system. It includes and affects our drinking water supplies, availability of water for various industries. It affects ecological features and processes. And because of all of those components and its influence on health and safety, as well through flooding and other aspects, we wanted to make sure that this piece was included and that we have a common approach that is consistent and starts to provide that direction and that understanding across the county. In terms of the options, option 1 includes key hydrologic features and key hydrologic areas. We used guidance from some existing provincial plans to help inform what this option would look like. We would consider this to be a basic system or the base system that should be implemented. It will address landscape level considerations, but it doesn't necessarily capture some of the interactions and interdependencies with the natural heritage system, and doesn't necessarily include some of the what we might term upstream considerations, such as headwater drainage areas and features, and also in terms of hazard lands and inclusion of floodplains, shoreline hazards, and other components within the system. For option 2, we basically said we could include some or all of those depending on direction that we receive through consultation. You can go ahead, Jack.
Thank you. And so the other area that we've been consulting on is some of the policy options that we could use to help to advance and implement the natural legacy system. And some of these we've been looking at coming out of some of the experiences with applications and applicants are having with trying to propose development in areas where studies are required or otherwise experiencing the policies that we currently have and looking at ways that they could work better. So these directions include making our environmental impact study guidelines easier to follow, both for the consultants that need to prepare them, and then also for the people, including members of the public, who end up reviewing them, just to help them be a very clear outline of the natural features and potential risks to them and how those can be mitigated or avoided. Other steps include linking up the mapping and the policy a lot more clearly so that it's easier to see if you're in a designation, what types of policies might apply, and also looking at really clear formats for communication. We've been looking at policy as a basic standard and the opportunity for guidelines to provide more detailed direction, and also for the opportunity of those guidelines to be more readily adapted to suit changing circumstances or needs. Another option we've been looking at is a community planning permit system. And this is a tool that can help with implementation in terms of both being able to grant variances or relief from particular provisions where warranted, and make that kind of like a minor variance, but faster and potentially even delegated to staff, while also providing for a good suite of implementation tools. We've been looking at whether different forested areas in the system would be appropriate to have different types of forestry permits available to help to support the long-term quality of the forest in areas where that forest quality is the most important. We've been looking at opportunities to reduce the duration of disruption to our natural systems as a result of aggregate operations, which are understood to be temporary land uses. And so if we can encourage progressive rehabilitation, particularly for the larger scale projects, and when they're within the natural environment system, then there's some opportunities to reduce the duration of that disruption to the landscape. We've also been looking at recognizing that the county plan works together with our local official plans, and that the refinement and inclusion of natural legacy or natural environment systems within local plans may occur at a different resolution of mapping. And so there would be opportunities for the county system, the county natural environment system, to map the entire county, but to upload sort of more refined local natural heritage systems to support good implementation and avoid duplication of effort and policy. We've also got a recognition through this project and through some of our other projects that a lot of value for our natural legacy comes from people having the opportunity to interact with it. And so there's a desire through this direction to support the development of sustainable opportunities for people to continue to connect with our natural legacy and gain their appreciation of it. I'm just going to review briefly kind of where we are in the project. We have completed those background papers. We're just wrapping up the engagement and consultation stage, moving to a final PDC approval of a discussion, and then setting out to map the preferred natural environment system through the county official plan process, which is just getting underway and has a special council meeting on October 21st, as noted in that staff report, which is your item 7.1. We've so far heard from the public. We've had 120 some responses to a shorter stakeholder survey. We had 10 responses to a longer form stakeholder survey, including from several of our local municipalities. And we've responded to the request and desire to come and speak to you this evening about Brockton's interests in respect to this topic. With that, we have a few questions, and I think Kristen is going to lead on those in terms of some next pieces or next steps for us.
So one of the key pieces that we're trying to get through the consultation and engagement process is where members of the public and respondents, as well as local municipalities, sit relative to the options. And we can be somewhere between the options, because ultimately when we put forward the recommended system, it may include portions from the different options, or could be a hybrid between two if we find that the response sits, let's say, somewhere between option 2 and 3, or between options 1 and 2. So the question to the group here and to this council is, where, in your opinion, does Brockton sit on the scale of options for the natural environment system?
Oh, okay, Ms. Harrison. Well, I don't think right now we're in a position to answer the questions as a group. We are independent of your work. We're quite dissatisfied with the work of some of the other consultants on this. And we are hiring a consultant who will be checking all of the work. And we will be doing submissions as from our professional planner. And so I mean, this work here doesn't impact us a lot, because Greenock Swamp is our main natural asset that is protected. But so that's where we're at. We are going to hire a planner, and we're not happy with the direction of some of the other pillars of those eight pillars with where the OP is headed. So, but I'll open it up to council. Deputy Mayor Gierzak.
Thank you, Mayor Peabody, and through you to our two guests. Really like to see the presentation and the thinking behind the presentation. I guess when I think about an official plan that's 25 years in the making, and I think about the status of the world and net zero targets for 2050, I naturally ask, what's the science-based measurable impact on extreme weather events that this type of planning can impact? I see a lot of good thinking, but no measurable impacts to all of the efforts. So in order to answer your question, if I had a better understanding of that, I'd have a much easier time answering whether or not I think we should be closer to option 1 or option 3. And as I say, we certainly have experienced more extreme weather events. And by incorporating some of the protections that you're talking about, hopefully, they would be mitigating those extreme weather events. So that science-based approach would be extremely important to me, and I think extremely important to everyone within the county who's thinking about how do we get to the future from where we are today. Thank you.
Okay, further questions? Well, okay, Ms. Harrison, what was your next question then?
One of the other questions that we've been asking is, because we've put forward an approach for Southern Bruce County and Northern Bruce County that are geographically or responding to the geographic differences, does the approach of taking features and connecting them into a system resonate, or does that seem like an appropriate approach for Brockton? Or, do you have any concerns or responses to that as an approach specific to your municipality?
Well, again, I think I'd have to refer that to our planner that we hire.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you look at the natural environment of Brockton, the farmers have really protected things and run a very sustainable economy for 150 years. They have preserved a lot of woodlots. Mm-hmm. So I think, I think the in the context of your work, we are frustrated that some of our concerns weren't addressed. We would like to see our hamlets grow, and that would not be impinging on the river environment or tearing down woodlots, but it would be on existing farmland, which we do have some farmers willing to sell, because we do need a more vibrant rural population. We're experiencing depopulation in our rural area, and I'm not seeing any of that in the work the county's doing. And I don't think it impinges at all on the natural heritage. As well, we'd like to see the ability to slightly grow the urban boundary of Walkerton, which we were told through this process that we'd be blocked on that. And again, that growth would not take out a woodlot. So, but we'll have to refer this to our planner, and when that person is hired, which we're going to do later tonight. Okay, Councillor Adams.
I'll just say very quickly, when I read through this, I got the sense, seeing setting targets and so on, I was thinking it was going to become more restrictive. I know this is one of 8 different areas being looked at, and Mayor Peabody, you talked about a couple that we have concerns with as a council. But one of the things I did hear Kristen and Jack talking about, which was a bit more encouraging for me relative to the natural legacy, I think it was more of a reach out of collaboration as opposed to restriction. And I was afraid when what I read here was we're going to be heading towards more restrictions. Sometimes that's well placed, but sometimes it's a little more bureaucracy and so on. So I was encouraged to hear that collaborative approach. I think that Jack, you and Kristen spoke to, I think, what I heard, as opposed to restrictive. So that's good.
If I might just briefly respond, and I appreciate this is not for debate purposes. Certainly, I think when the discussion paper comes out, which we have started to prepare, some of what you've just said, Councillor Adams, should come through as well. So hopefully you can have an opportunity to review that. And there's some additional information and feedback in that regard as well.
Okay, any further questions? I can't see all of council right now. Anybody else? Okay, just make one other observation since we're dealing with natural heritage in the topic of growth. Saugeen Shores, which has experienced very exponential growth. That growth is occurring in the Huron Fringe area, and the urban boundary of Saugeen Shores is allowed to go right up to the boundary of McGregor Point Provincial Park. And they've got more than enough housing, and they're going to grow exponentially for years, whereas the county has said that we should be locked in. So I don't understand how another municipality is allowed to impinge on an extremely important natural heritage feature, which is the Huron Fringe. So put that out there, Mr. Van Dorp, something you know that I'll be pursuing at county. And I do note, I'm looking at the map right now, what an inequity it is that we're being locked in. And talking about natural heritage, and I'm looking at a natural heritage that's being developed upon. We approved it last planning meeting, a huge chunk of the Huron Fringe to be 51 huge monster homes. So there's my thoughts on preserving natural heritage. We're great at it here. I don't know, Ms. Harris, if you know or not, we've got this bobolink reserve that we set up, 100 acres of bobolink habitat, and we send our workers out there and we cut all the hawthorns out. And so the bobolinks have a great place to live. I'm not making it up. We got 100 acres. We've saved the bobolink habitat. I think we're the only municipality around here that has. So we expect some credit for it. All right. If there's no further questions, we'll move along. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, minutes. By Deputy Mayor Gierzak, seconded by Councillor Hutchin. And we adopt the minutes of special council meeting September 22nd and September 28th as presented. All those in favor? Okay, that's carried. Okay, then we have business brought forward from the minutes, which we have a motion that was report from the municipality of Scugog by Councillor Hutchin. Moved by Councillor Hutchin, seconded by Councillor Lifeso. Whereas the Township of Scugog received a staff report on 2021 structure inventory and inspections, the 21 Ontario Structure Inspection Manual Inventory Inspection Summary Report prepared by Plan Mac Engineering, further approving the staff report to the provincial government. And whereas the Corporation of the Municipality of Brockton values the cultural heritage of our bridges, prioritizing investments in bridge and culvert maintenance and repair as part of the annual budget process, and through identifying efficiencies and cost savings, applying for grants through other levels for major bridge and culvert replacements, while also following the principles of asset management and preventive maintenance. Now, therefore, be resolved, the Corporation of the Municipality of Brockton hereby supports the Township of Scugog in their request that the Province of Ontario and the Government of Canada be encouraged to provide more funding to rural municipalities to support infrastructure projects related to major bridge and culvert replacement. And further, that this resolution be forwarded to the Premier of Ontario, Minister of Finance, Federal Minister of Finance, Bruce Gray, MP and MPPs, AMO, and the Township of Scugog. All those in favor? Okay, it's carried. All right. On to reports. 7.1. We've got the natural legacy. Moved by Councillor Adams and by Councillor Alfick that we receive report 18, Plan the Bruce County Official Plan Consultation Natural Legacy, prepared by Dieter Welts, Building and Planning Manager. And in doing so recommends that staff prepare and submit comments in response to the plan, the Bruce consultation document, based on staff's recommendation and council input from tonight's discussion. Okay. So Mr. Welts, you have a report there. So How are we doing with hiring somebody?
Yes, through you, Mayor Peabody. We are just awaiting some hourly rates that have been from both consultants that we have reached out to. Both have advised that the process would be administered at an hourly rate similar to our engineer and legal consultants. So we're awaiting that, which is anticipated to be received tomorrow morning.
Okay. All right, very good. Good report, Mr. Welts. And thanks for being, and to Sonia too, for being so on top of this. Okay. Any questions then? Yes, Councillor Lifeso.
Yeah, want to make sure it's off mute. So just a couple of questions. So there's eight basic policies they're working through, and they've consulted us on, is there 8? Yeah. So they're still doing the one in agriculture and heritage, but they've done the others already, or at least had done consultation.
Through you, Mayor Peabody, we have done agriculture, and we have, I believe, business and connecting may have been earlier discussions that have proceeded, but I believe we have checked the homes, good growth, communities, natural legacy, agriculture, and I believe heritage. I'd have to double check on heritage.
Thank you. I just wanted, because they've obviously gone through them, or most of them, in order to have a meeting on October 21st, I would think. Just wondering what stage they were at on those policies. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Ms. Watson.
And through you, Mayor Peabody, yeah, we had some good discussions with both planners, and like Dieter said, we're just narrowing down the costs. Depending on, it is hard to scope what we do want the planner to do. So starting with a focus on good growth was what we had discussed, to make sure that they're addressing the boundary concerns that we have and the regional market approach. So we didn't actually get into discussing further on natural heritage or natural legacy, I guess they're calling it, to getting into that review as well. We are trying to look at costs and how we get the best start on this as we're evaluating how to move forward here. But confident we're in good hands and we can secure that tomorrow. And then our approach for the county council meeting on October 21st at this point is, it is just the initial planning meeting where there's presenting the scope of the project, which we haven't even been privy to at this point. So we will have a submission there raising some of our concerns, but it may just be prepared by staff at this point, and noting that we're engaging a planner because we have lots of time to ensure that we have our say after they've had an evaluation of all of the reports that have been prepared. So it's kind of where we're at right now. If there's any further questions or concerns or direction, we'd appreciate knowing it now as we're speaking with them.
Yes, well, of the 8, obviously the priorities are the housing and the growth areas.
Yeah.
And natural heritage. Great that we have the Greenock Swamp, but I can't ever see that being under threat, just given the hazard lands.
Mm-hmm.
So it's great that that's preserved,
yeah,
in perpetuity. But and then we do need, as I've said over and over again, we need more concrete direction on the social housing components.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Anybody else? Okay, all those in favor? Okay, so it's carried. Okay, some great Another great report from Mr. Welts here. Activity report moved by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Lifeso, that we received report 27 from our CBO for September. Building officials activity report prepared by Dieter Welts, Building and Planning Manager, CBO. Any questions about those numbers? 42 million, that's pretty impressive. So, I don't know, are we going to hit 50, Mr. Welts? Might be a stretch, but.
I think we can do it.
Oh, that'd be great. Great. Okay, all those in favor? All right, excellent. Okay, Community Development Coordinator update. Moved by Deputy Mayor Gierzak, seconded by Councillor Hutchin. Councillor Spotty Brockton hereby accepts report number 2021-7, Community Development Coordinator update prepared by Paulette Perot, Community Development Coordinator for information purposes. All those in favor? Any questions first? Oh, okay. Well, it's carried. Are there any questions about the report? No. Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. Regional Training Center update. Moved by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Lifeso. Councillor Swati Brockton hereby accepts report fire 2021-6 Brockton Regional Training Center update prepared by Chris Wells, Director of Fire and Emergency Services for information purposes. Any comments about that for Chief Wells? Councillor Lang.
Just a brief comment and more of a thanks through Mayor Peabody, and just so that council and senior staff are aware of the time that Chief Wells has put into this. He's been there since day one and gone through the very first steps of initiating this regional training center a year ago to this being our very first in person. And there's an article that came out of Bruce Power. It's called The Point. It's an internal article which I'll get and I'll share with council. That kind of reflects of what Chief Wells has done for this process. And the last 5 weeks, it has just been remarkable. And the feedback from the Ontario Fire College, Bruce Power, and all players that have been a part of this process have just been phenomenal. And this is really a really good start to Brockton and our path forward for Brockton. And I just want to say on behalf of council, and I hope everybody reflects the same, is a big thank you to Chief Wells for his time put into this, because it has been overwhelming success, and it's been really cool to see. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, good feedbacks. Thank you very much. And certainly the pictures of the men doing the training up at Bruce Power. Yeah, that's great. So look forward to that article, James, when it comes out. Okay. Councillor Adams has a question.
Yeah, really quickly, just to further what James said. Thank you to Chief Wells. Also, there were 6 volunteer firefighters that spent their own time getting certified as adjunct instructors. Didn't quite say that right, but anyways, like to recognize that as well. That volunteer effort and to get certified. Got to recognize that really positive effort on their part.
Okay, yeah, great point, Steve. Thank you. All right, all those in favor then? Carried. Frontline pumper truck, moved by Deputy Mayor Gierzak, seconded by Councillor Hutchin, that we accept report fire number 7, frontline pumper truck prepared by Chris Wells, Director of Fire and Emergency Services. And in doing so, authorizes the director to proceed with a request for proposal for 1 pumper truck for delivery in 2022. Be funded from the Fire Equipment Reserve Fund, and that the tender acceptance will be brought forward for council's consideration as part of the 2022 budget expense. Questions? All those in favor? Carried. Okay. Back to an item that we've discussed, 7.6, Side Road 5 North. Moved by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Lifeso, that we receive report PW 2021-22 Side Road 5 North resident request prepared by Kelly Mann for information purposes and Further direct staff to follow historical procedures related to the maintenance of unopened road allowances. Any questions, comments about the report? Yes, Councillor Elphick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to confirm, so Mr. Bethune came before council and just was asking for the road to be extended 15 meters by my notes, and looking for an adapted entrance for side road 5. I just want to confirm that fire's been on site. They have no concerns. Municipal staff have been out there on site. They have no concerns. There seemed to be a comment about gravel. Again, no concerns, and that we've fully explored this and that everything is up to what we would expect for an unopened road allowance. I just wanted to put that to Mr. Fertney, please.
Through you, Mayor Peabody, to Councillor Elphick. Yes, so Chief Wells was on site and took a look at the roadway, and he confirmed that the trucks would be actually coming in from Paisley, not from Walkerton. That being said, he also commented that there should be some trees both on the unopened road allowance as well as Mr. Bethune's property that need to be cut back. So that's from an emergency services perspective. From a municipal staff perspective, the public works perspective, we did go out and we did grade to a certain extent the roadway. And so we did that, and we said we would do it once just to make sure that things were relatively good. But upon observation, the road would need to be brought up significantly to municipal standards should we need to or want to proceed with that. And we are willing to look at that should council want us to go that direction. However, I guess my last comment would be, our common practice is that the homeowner is responsible for those upgrades. And if you do for one, you need to do for everybody else, which is always makes me a little bit nervous with those kinds of things. So I'll leave it to council.
If I can just ask one more item that I missed, any concern with the intersection, if you will, of the driveway and the Brant Elderslie town line, because it just seems to, all come together there and converge for signage. We're good there? Just because it does look like there's a driveway coming out onto the town line, not necessarily a roadway.
Through you, Mayor Peabody, Councillor Elphick. Yes, so I'm not concerned about signage at this point. We will go back and take a look to see if we can make it more clear for emergency services or others going into that area. The concreted driveway, the neighbor's driveway, does make it look unusual and kind of awkward, and I can see where Mr. Bethune's coming from that perspective. Mm-hmm. But the reality is that intersection and road has been like that for as long as anybody can remember, and we have never touched that road as it is an open road allowance.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Adams.
Just to further what Greg said, having seen it, I was surprised at how far the concrete went, and Greg clarified that that is actually on road allowance. So I understand Mr. Bethune's concern about perhaps damaging the concrete. That is actually on road allowance. So if that one ever comes back to Brockton, because actually concrete can only take a certain amount of weight depending on the kind of farm equipment and so on. But anyways, I think that complicates the issue probably for Mr. Bethune, and I understand that. For hearing that, though, I do support the report in terms of following the process that we used in the past.
All right. I have a question. Initially, the thought was of taking side road 5 as it runs north-south and extending it down that large hill to the road, and then that would have involved a huge cut and fill operation, so that was untenable for cost. Then the second idea was to have an entrance along the Lomas property line. So would Mr. Bethune, if this is the direction council goes, would he still be able to, where would we be if he wanted to put an entrance onto the town line from, as he suggested, in that red line in his letter? Can he do that if he pays for it? I know he rejected that tonight. I'm just wondering, would we authorize a second entrance there in that spot?
Yes, we can certainly look at doing it as another option. But again, it'd be at Mr. Bethune's cost to do so. And without having looked at it very closely, as far as I can't even forecast cost, what that would be until I look at the rest of the road as well. So anything is possible. We just have to have it engineered properly.
There's a hill there. Councillor Adams said the concrete really complicates things. If it had followed the contour of the road allowance, it would just look like it did historically. Now it's up to the town line. It does complicate things. Do we know where the on that Lomas property, where the property pin is for Lomas? Where the road, where's our road allowance end? Do we know?
My understanding is the road allowance ends part way up the driveway around where the woodlot starts. So it runs east. I think it runs east, and then it's in the elbow, 90-degree elbow shape, and then the woodlot start, and then his property line is just past the woodlot line. As I mentioned in the letter and in the report, was that we would have to do some tree cutting, as would Mr. Bethune need to do some tree cutting. But the entire roadway would need to be upgraded for everybody's sake.
Okay. So are there any concerns about, as Councillor Adams said, if that concrete driveway was damaged, who would be responsible?
Well, technically under our encroachment policy, sir, we, if it's damaged due to heavy equipment like a grader or a dozer going over it, we would, it would be, the encroachment policy says that we do not have to repair that. I'm not sure why the neighbor has decided to put the concrete in as far down as he did. He did not consult the municipality in doing that. But it is what it is currently, and I would certainly say that we would crush it if we put any heavy equipment over top of it.
Okay, one final question about that driveway. Any concerns about right of passage then, long term? For people that want to access that road allowance, unopened road allowance?
Not at this time.
Okay. All right, those are my questions. Anybody else? It's Councillor Lang.
Just a comment, the owner next door is aware of and cooperative of the person next door. I was out to look at the same thing and spoke to the homeowner. He's aware that his concrete going to the road is on municipal property where the access would go to that line. So if there is damage in the future, he's aware that isn't technically isn't his land. So he understands if there was that to happen, that, I mean, ultimately it would have to be replaced or not replaced in his case. So he's very aware and understanding of the whole situation, and quite confused too. So I'm not going to say anymore. I said what I said in the first part. So it's pretty cut and dry where the land is. The individual has a very clean opportunity to go back to his lot from the said land set out. And if there's no concern from emergency services, then I'm happy with the report.
All right. Okay, so the report, get back to the motion. The motion has been read, and it states that we further direct staff to follow the historical procedures related to the maintenance of unopened road allowance. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Winter internment. Moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Elphick. Councillor Spelly Brockton receives report PW 2021-21 Winter Internment Pilot Project in Walker Cemetery, prepared by Greg Fertney, Director of Operations. And in doing so, approves bringing forward an amending bylaw for the operation of the cemetery's bylaw 2013-66 to allow for winter interments. And secondly, approves the proposed winter interments project policy as attached to be included in the amending bylaw. Questions? Okay, Councillor Hutchin.
Thank you. In the document, it says the municipal staff require 5 days advance notice before the burial. That seems excessive, doesn't it? I'm not in the funeral business, but I think it's usually like 3 days.
Brittany?
Mayor Peabody, Councillor Hutchin. The extra time is because if there's an amount of snow on the ground that we have to remove, there's also the frozen ground that we have to deal with once we've located the plot properly. And the excavation takes a little bit longer because of the frozen ground. And so it's just a little bit longer of a process. It's not really about timing as far as the interment, and it's not trying to put off the interment. It's just trying to make sure that we're right where we want to be.
And if they really want a winter burial, they'll wait the 5 days.
That is certainly our hope.
Okay, thank you.
Ling.
Through you, Mayor Peabody, and I'll just speak to support that actually for Greg, just with experience. And it's not saying that there is that window, but it's not saying that there isn't the opportunity to close that window, correct, Greg? That if say there isn't, if it's December, for example, and we don't have the snowfall that we'd see in February, there's that window that we'd have the opportunity to open that grave sooner. It's not like, I'll give an example. When I was a funeral director in Waterloo, we didn't get as much snow, or even Toronto down in Mount Pleasant, or where we didn't have the increase of snowfall, and it was a lot more accessible to get to a grave to open, for example. So I think it's a great report, and I totally understand the time frame based on that 5 day, based on the time of year and when the snowfall would be, if it's a February, for example. I just want to thank Greg for putting the time into this, speaking to the BAO and giving this service to families in our area. This has been a long time coming, and I appreciate the time put into this report and making this happen for our residents.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Councillor Adams.
I share the concerns expressed by Kim. I actually reached out to a local funeral home, but I didn't hear any comment back, because there were a number of conditions in there that I thought were maybe a little bit restrictive in terms of getting it done and actually making it work. I'm just wondering if we did, in fact, reach out to our local funeral home people to ask, just kind of do a kind of a recap on the draft. Just wondering if we did that. Again, I'm really pleased that we're going ahead with it, with the draft and the pilot project. But I'm just wondering if we reached out to the funeral home folks just to ask them for their perspective. They also have experience with other funeral or other cemeteries, I should say, in other municipalities that do the same thing. So I'm just wondering if we reached out. I am a bit concerned with the restrictive nature of it, but I am very pleased that we're moving forward with the pilot. So maybe we tweak it at the end of this year if we're going to move forward with it. So the question I guess I have through you, Mayor Peabody, to Greg, is they're just wondering if we reached out and had discussion with the funeral home people here locally.
Through you, Mayor Peabody, to Councillor Adams. No, we have not discussed this with the local funeral home. He has been in contact, however, as I understand it, with the local cemetery operator, and they have discussed the processes to a certain extent. The reason for the extension, first of all, the window can certainly be reduced, as Councillor Lang has mentioned, and so we don't have that concern. I'm just worried about come February, January, February as being the really tough times to get things done. And we had to put some kind of, not restrictions, but conditions on the pilot project because this is so new to us that we have no experience in it. And I'm not even sure what the first couple of interments are going to look like as far as the process or how long things are going to take, because we have no experience in this whatsoever. We also have very clay soil, and that causes me some other grief in other areas. the cemetery in Chepstow, for instance, has very sandy soil. So it's a lot different than what we've been used to. And so honestly, we just need a little bit extra time to make sure we do things right the first time and we don't have any issues going forward. 1, 2, or 3 under our belt, and we can speed up the process, we're certainly willing and able to do that.
And I understand that, just as a follow-up, Greg, and I understand what you were trying to do was have something workable here as a pilot. One of the restrictive parts was don't pass away between December 22nd and January 5th.
Through you, Mayor Peabody, we put that in because the contractor that we have to do the excavating typically takes on some vacation at the same time. For one situation. The other situation is we've gone this long without having winter interments and there's being a delay. The hope is that these folks would be willing and able to, wait the couple weeks to do it properly and not having to have to deal with it at Christmas time. But certainly we can review that if there's an interest or a need for us to do that.
Thanks, Greg.
Councillor Lang.
I'll just briefly give one more maybe experience just to kind of spin off what I said before. When I was a director at the local funeral home, we had one incident where it was a heavy snowfall, and we did have a funeral set or visitation, and then we had a funeral set or mass, and we were unable, based on the time frame, to get the grave open. But the family was very open to completing the mass that day and then maybe doing a burial a couple days later on. That would be an option through the funeral home if that was in conjunction with the service provided as a municipality. So there is that option there. I will again say, like I spoke to the last meeting we first talked about this, my grandfather passed away earlier this year in February, and we were able to do a burial in Elmwood, which was I mean, which was great. It's as crazy as that is to say, but we were able to go through that. We didn't have the snowfalls we normally would. So again, this is great. I like the platform that's put together, and Greg, the time put into this. Appreciate everything you've done.
Okay. Councillor Elphick.
Thank you. To Greg, I really appreciate you taking the time to get this together so quickly. I know that it was less than a month ago that it came to council, and it's already back to us for approval. Because this is a pilot, and I think because council and staff share in a joint interest in ensuring this succeeds, I'm wondering if it's helpful if council were to authorize a provision in this particular policy that the CIO or the director of operations had the authority to make a change to this policy if there was a need to do so. Council meets on a limited basis. I worry about something coming up that needs to be done, and I think that our staff have the professional discretion in this case to ensure that it happens in a positive manner. I would certainly be discouraged to hear from a family that faced a bureaucratic barrier, if you will, arising under this policy. And I'm just wondering, in the spirit of making sure that we do things properly or right, that we allow that discretion in the policy, or whether that currently exists, maybe is my first question. Because I agree that I would hate to see something, be held up over something that we didn't perceive or anticipate entering into this for the first time. So I'd certainly support that.
Okay.
And maybe just my question really is that do staff have that authority right now? I just noted at the bottom of the policy, it speaks to revisions of the policy that it would have to go through the CIO and then presentation to council. And we all know that will take time. So if it's something for this particular policy on this limited short-term basis to authorize staff ahead of time, I'm certainly prepared to support that.
All right, Sonia, how would you interpret that then?
Yeah, I guess through you, Mayor Peabody, I appreciate the intent for sure. It's hard for Greg right now to anticipate everything that may arise. I think always, he and I would work together to solve anything that came up. And if it needed a formal change to the policy, we'd bring that forward to council. So I'm quite comfortable as CAO to have to make that decision without even having that in the policy, and then have that ratified by council if it was something that was, needed immediate attention. So.
Okay. All right. All those in favor of the policy then? Okay, thank you. Saugeen Municipal Airport Road Maintenance Request. Moved by Councillor Hutchins, or Lifeso. Councillor Sylvia Brockton receives report PW 2021-20 Saugeen Municipal Airport Road Maintenance Request prepared by Greg Fertney, Director of Operations, and in doing so, direct staff to pursue option blank. Okay. Councillor Hutchins.
Thank you. I support option 3 because I don't think it should be the responsibility of one of the 3 municipalities to cover the costs for this. It should come out of the general budget of the airport.
Okay. Further discussion? Deputy Mayor Gierzak.
Thank you. And through you to council and perhaps to Greg, when this first came up, we did have difficulty identifying an insurance company that would provide that insurance to the airport. So through Greg's report, I understand that there are third parties that we deal with that are able to get similar insurance. So I will follow up with Greg to ensure that the airport can at least identify people and perhaps insurance companies to provide that insurance. Thank you.
Councillor Elphick.
Thank you. I understood through the report that ensuring an insurance provider was one of the key pieces to this report coming forward, and maybe through you, Mr. Mayor, to Deputy Mayor Gierzak, if he can comment if whether this report then is somewhat premature and whether the commission would like to explore an opportunity to seek an insurer, and if so, if that changes the outcome of this report, and maybe in the spirit of that, then tabling this report to our next meeting.
If I may, Your Worship, yeah, I think it's not a reluctance on the part of the airport to do this or to even have the insurance. So it's just a matter of ensuring that we have a policy in place. So whichever is the least expensive route moving forward, that is what I would expect our airport manager to recommend to the commission. So I was going to say I'm very comfortable with Councillor Hutchins' recommendation to go with option 3, if that's the wish of the council.
Okay, put option 3 in. All those in favor? Okay, very good. September water and wastewater. Moved by Deputy Mayor Gierzak, seconded by Councillor Hutchins. Councillor Sylvia Brockton receives report 15, September 21, water and wastewater report prepared by Greg Fertney, Director of Operations, for information purposes. All those in favor? Carried. Municipal modernization phase 2 funding update. Moved by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Lifeso. Councillor Sylvia Brockton hereby approves report number CAO 2021-24 Municipal Modernization Program Phase 3 funding prepared by Fiona Hamilton, Clerk, Trish Sartori, CFO, and Sonia Watson, CAO, and authorizes the following applications for the Municipal Modernization Program Intake 3. Master Recreation Service and Facility Review, Legislative Support, Interim Position. Okay, questions? Okay, Councillor Adams and Elphick.
I had a few comments, but I won't go on too much. I have been personally a bit disappointed with some of the results from our previous modernization program, but I won't get into that. I do have a question though with regards to the hiring of an individual. Will that end when that interim position ends after a year, or is the thought going to be that that person would be hired by the municipality as an incremental body? That's my question.
Okay, good question. Ms. Hamilton.
Through you, Mayor Peabody, I'm quite happy to answer that. The intention would be that it would be a one-year contract. Some of the tasks that would be associated with that position would be connected to things like the election, which wouldn't be a need that we would see year after year. And also the hope is that some of the tasks that position would complete are sort of large projects, some that have been identified in the strategic action plan that once complete, we would benefit for many years, but that wouldn't need to be constantly done again. So scanning of documents and records and then filing them appropriately is a significant task that has taken on more precedent after the remote world that we find ourselves in. But we do have all of our historic bylaws. We have all of our historic minutes. We have all of our historic agendas and motions, etc. And the retention for those documents is forever. And so having them scanned would mean that we can store them somewhere else. It means those documents can be uploaded and available for the public as well. We do still get requests for those historic bylaws. So some of those things are projects that once they're done once, we don't need to keep doing them, but it is a bit of catch up in terms of something that hasn't occurred in the past and does need to be completed to protect those documents. So the intention would not be that this would be an incremental position, but that this would allow some of those projects to get completed. They would create efficiencies, especially as staff are moving to remote work, allowing for those documents to be accessed by any staff in any work location, not necessarily having to come into the office anymore. So there are some efficiencies there. That's why we're thinking this is a good project for the modernization. And as we identified in the strategic action plan, the Heritage Committee has hired a student over many years to archive material. That's another project that would potentially fall under this person. They could do some of that scanning and archival work with more of an opportunity to extend that just beyond those 2 months and maybe really get that project tackled and digitized. So there are some larger projects that I think are really worthwhile, but they're not necessarily carryover projects that we can expect to see happening year after year. And that's why we believe that they would be a good fit for the modernization, because they create that efficiency, gets the work done, but we're not necessarily adding a permanent position to the roster.
Okay, Councillor Elphick.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor, I think from the outset of my time on council have been critical of the ways in which we as a municipality have used our municipal modernization dollars. And again, in reviewing this report, I went right back to the beginning of what this program is designed for. And I looked at the release that came out in the end of June from the province about the dollars that were being allocated. And the announcement cites that it's funding to help improve the delivery of critical programs and services while saving taxpayer dollars. And to quote Minister Steve Clark of Municipal Affairs and Housing, to put it simply, identifying and implementing modern solutions means money is diverted away from wasteful service delivery and stays in the pockets of local taxpayers. And when I read this report, I'm not convinced that we're doing that. I don't believe that what we have identified here in this report is going to achieve what the province has outlined for those dollars to be used for. And I think that there are a number of other key and critical opportunities in this municipality that we can move forward with that actually would achieve what is outlined by the province. And I think that staff should be directed to go back and identify what they believe to actually be in line with what these modernization dollars are to be used for. But the two recommendations here before me, I don't support. And as a result, I'm not in favor of this report as drafted.
Further discussion then? Yes, Ms. Watson.
Thank you, Mayor Peabody. I will say that we went through all departments. All department heads are, extremely busy at this time. And so again, the province announces monies that are nice to have, but we're also reviewing all of our projects and ways to be creative and create efficiencies and adapt our services. And through all the department head discussions, these are the two areas that were identified as priorities. So like Fiona said, there are a lot of efficiencies that are going to be creative. They may not seem as significant to council, but by digitizing our documents and moving forward with our municipal app, some of the implementation of these items will create efficiencies to be able to serve our residents, and also to have staff be able to have access to documents that creates time to do so. So we were looking at ways of applying this, and the master recreation plan is also, a big project for us. And through that right now, there's a lot of back and forth in trying to work with each developer on how we integrate these features into new developments. So this is already identified as a priority, and will help create less time by having this document complete. So that's, I guess, all the further comments I would have at this time.
Right. Thank you. Councillor Lifeso.
I haven't read the application in detail, but I do notice basically I think the staff report is I noticed that the first heading is actually implementation is review stream, which to me implies that the stream is actually for reviews of services. So you have to follow what the guidelines are. And I do think we talked about customer service, et cetera, and I think what they've got in here is that that's what it's doing. It's helping to review the activities that are important to our citizens, and seeing if we can save money or provide them on a cost-effective basis. So I'm kind of a little bit confused how you can look at it and say it doesn't modernize anything. Like that's the whole intent. So I'm not really sure what other projects people have in mind, but I think these make sense to me.
Thank you. Tim?
Thank you. And if I may just politely outline my concerns, it's that in the review stream, from what I understand is that we're to be looking at how we deliver services, and it's for an independent third party to assess those for the purposes of finding savings or efficiencies. What I'm lost on is the correlation between a recreational services and facility review and outlining for us as a municipality how we can achieve more improved customer service. And maybe that was just absent in the report, and that's why I have the comments that I have. But I don't see how that's correlating. When it comes to recreational services and facility reviews, we had the Pynchon report in 2019 that looked at the arena. We have a Parks and Recreational Cultural Master Plan that's talked about separately in our strategic plan. So it's not a review. It's talking about something much different than what I believe the province had outlined. And I think that there are opportunities if Councillor Lifeso brought up customer service. I think there is lots of elements if we look at our strategic plan to look at how we deliver customer service. If that's what wants to be reviewed, then fine. But when what's outlined in the report, I'm simply not in support of as it's currently drafted as I outlined.
Okay. Councillor Adams.
Very quickly, I always go back when we've had these reviews of taking a look at what we could be working on. I go back to Minister Clark's original letter and I think follow up saying the funds are used to lower costs and improve customer service for local residents and businesses. I think that probably is in support of what Tim said, but again, keeping in mind lower costs and improve customer service. And I think that's perfect. That's why we're getting this money.
Okay, Trish, then Mark.
Hey, Mayor Peabody. Just to kind of echo a little bit what Sonia had mentioned, staff have done extensive research on what our options are. We've discussed all of our major projects. Mark actually did a lot of research on his own with past applications from other municipalities that applied through the review stream through either the modernization intake 2 or 1 that were successful for similar applications. And within the review, we would be looking at some cost-saving measures on how to offer services, recreational services to our community that would be in line of what they're looking for, as opposed to kind of a mixed match of different services that might not be meeting their needs. So I just wanted to kind of bring that to your attention, that these were extensively reviewed and also provided with some prior examples from successful applications as well.
Okay, and Mr. Coleman, you had your hand up.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Just addressing from the master plan update that we are looking to do, as well as the facility review. I think these components address a lot of issues, including customer service through facility design, aged facilities, accessibility, energy efficiency. We do have an inventory of older buildings and facilities. And yes, we know, generally speaking, that we are looking to the future. That future is shorter on the horizon than we may realize as time flies by. In terms of a growing community and in terms of the sustainability of us trying to fund and repair older buildings. And then if we do move on with new facilities, how do we repurpose or use or dispose of the older facilities? And with so much development occurring in Brockton, understanding, getting some guidance and some direction on best practices and how we link our new subdivisions within Walkerton, whether it's through trails, parks, what types of parks and facilities, and then understanding all the background statistical information in terms of demographics of our community, where we were in 2011 versus now, and where we will be in the next few short years with the growth that we're potentially experiencing, I think is really important. And other municipalities were successful in a very similar grant application. And I think it bodes well in giving staff and council some direction and some guidance. The building condition assessment report only talked about maintaining current equipment in buildings for the next year. It did not even address the question of the future or how we move to the future. A master plan update would help us do that. And doing that, we need to understand what condition our current facilities and properties are in, what might be more sustainable and better serving to our clients, our residents, our customers, and understanding what their wants and needs are. I think all those surveys and all those components of this type of project would be really important.
Thank you. Ms. Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor Peabody. I just wanted to comment that this is the third intake application, and I just wanted to highlight that we have been enormously successful to date. And in particular, some of the components that came about from our last application in terms of our modernization with the municipal app, with e-permitting, with moving to e-commerce online, the broadcasting of council meetings. Those are all things that we are about poised to launch, that we've been doing the background implementation. And those things are going to provide enormous leaps forward, I believe, in terms of customer service for our residents and the ability for them to access our services in other methods. So in some ways, we have a great track record here that we've been really successful, and a lot of those are going to help our residents. And we're hoping that these are avenues that can grow on that and also assist as well. But I did just want to highlight that we've been successful, and all of those components will be launched in the near future. So it is a very exciting time with everything that's happening here as well.
Okay, I think we've went through our discussion of this, so I will call the question. We authorize the following applications for intake 3, Master Recreation Service and Facility Review, Legislative Support Interim Position. All those in favor? And all those opposed? Motion is carried. OPP annual billing, moved by Councillor Adams, second by Councillor Elphick, that we receive report 28 OPP annual billing prepared by Trish Sartori, CFO, for information purposes. Okay, any comments on the this year's bill? Oh. Okay, Councillor Lang.
I do, through you, Mayor Peabody, and I'm happy that it's down, but it's still higher than what we originally talked about. So even though it's still well, it's not going to thankfully cost our taxpayers dollars next year. It's still high, and I think it's important that we note that again this year.
Yeah. Okay, Councillor Adams.
Well said, James. We were given this report last week. I know Tim went through it, I went through it, and Brian Reed did. Is good news that it's going down, no question. Is good news that we're doing some proactive work in terms of things like fire alarms. Tim, I know you as well went through the calls for service, and that's quite telling. If every councillor gets a chance to take a look, I know it's a lot of reading, but for Tim and I being on the Police Services Board, we have to do that. And we started some action in 2020. We're doing it again in 2021. We need to continue to cull through those opportunities. Obviously, call for service is what we're paying for, but we need to make sure we can limit the ones like, for example, the bylaw coming forward on false alarms. We can deal with those. It takes 4 years, though, you look at that report, for us to really start moving goalposts, because it's a 4-year moving average. So, but I think this council, we've tried to be proactive, and I think the next council will need to be proactive as well if we want to wrestle the cost of policing and be as effective and efficient as we can be with the amount that we're spending. But again, $2.4 million, one of our biggest spends in Brockton for police services. As James mentioned, we need to do everything we can to get the best value for the money that we're spending on police services, and it's expensive. Tim, I don't know if you have any further comments.
Yeah, I would just echo Councillor Adams' points. Just for council's knowledge, our reconciled cost per household in 2019 was $506 per household. Estimated for 2020 was slightly down at $480, but again, estimated, that hasn't been reconciled yet. And then in 2021, our estimated cost was $513 per household. That cost of $513 is the highest cost of the municipalities that are serviced by the South Bruce OPP detachment. The average in Ontario for their property cost, or for the 2021 estimated average per property cost, is $356. So to give you a comparison of where the average is at versus where Brockton is at, we are certainly at the high end of the range. I'll give credit to the Police Services Board. They've been working hard to try to find opportunities to reduce those costs. At the same time, though, we are at the mercy of the OPP billing model, which is a 4-year average. So we are constantly, hoping that those numbers overall will go down, but we're still averaged out over a 4-year period. We'll continue our ongoing work to hopefully reduce those costs, or at least bring them in line with what other municipalities are currently experiencing.
Okay, all those in favor? Okay, fees and charges bylaw, moved by Deputy Mayor Gierzak, seconded by Councillor Hutchin, that we approve report 27, 2022, proposed fees and charges prepared by Trish Sartori, CFO, and in doing so approves a bylaw coming forward to adopt the 2022 fees and charges. Any questions? Okay, all those in favor? Carried. NWMO organization update, moved by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Lifeso, that we receive report CIO 23 nuclear waste management organization update prepared by Sonia Watson, CEO. In doing so, supports Brockton's participation in the studies as outlined to ensure Brockton's needs are understood and reflected, and further the CEO bring forward additional information for Brockton Council's consideration as applicable to ensure informed engagement in the NWMO site selection process. Any questions? Okay. Nobody has any questions? I have a concern about the cost of this. I'm not sure why we would be devoting staff time to this when the project isn't approved yet. Teeswater is not selected as a site, so I don't know why we're putting staff time into this. Councillor Adams?
Yeah, I agree with you, Mayor Peabody, and also I don't really see the benefit in us partnering, coming up with and being a key player in some of the partner initiatives that are outlined in the report as well. So I agree with your comments. I was a little surprised actually to see the report, the way it outlined, and it seemed fairly supportive. We've been pretty neutral so far, so I'm not sure about the partnering piece. I'm concerned about that.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Gierzak.
Thank you, Mayor Peabody. And I guess my feeling is a little bit different. I think it's important to be at the table. And no matter what our position is, we need to be informed early and be able to provide feedback early, as opposed to being away from the table and whatever happens, being kind of third parties to that. So I congratulate staff for thinking that this is important. South Bruce is a neighbor. Yeah, it's very close to us. And whatever happens there will impact a lot of our residents. So being informed early, I think, is important, and I fully support that direction. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Hutchin.
I agree with Deputy Mayor Gierzak. We obviously won't be participating, but we will be affected hugely when it goes ahead in South Bruce, which I'm pretty confident it will at some point, but we're all in the learning curve and it's important that we're there.
All right, Ms. Watson.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Peabody. And I just felt it important to bring this forward for council's information, because we had been requested to be part of this. I have many projects in Brockton that I don't need to attend to this as well, but it is important. If we wait till the time that South Bruce may or may not be selected, it'll be too late for our input. So, to make sure council's aware of them starting into this study phase, I think it is important that we're at the table and participating and working through that with Brockton's interests expressed. So again, and the idea on the future committee, that's something that council may or may not want to consider, but the other local municipalities are looking at that, and it may be something we're interested in as we get further in this process.
All right. Well, for council's information, in 2 successive meetings I've had with NWMO, I raised the issue of the fact that Walkerton's water aquifer runs the diagonal over towards Belmore, and I have received absolute disregard for that concern from NWMO. Never heard back from them, never heard how we might have any concerns measured scientifically, and yet they want to talk about other stuff. And they want us to come to the table and waste our own money on staff time. So I guess I'm at the point where council can vote for this, that's fine. I won't be going to any meetings with them because I've been to meetings with them and they just disregarded my concerns about our aquifer, which is a very important issue. So that's where I'm at. Okay, so we have the motion before us. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, strategic action plan. Moved by Deputy Mayor Gierzak, seconded by Councillor Hutchin, that the motion dealing with the report number CAO 2001-23, 2021-25 strategic action plan identified as item 711 under the report section of the September 28, 2021 council agenda that was tabled at the September 28th, 21 council meeting be taken from the table for the purposes of a vote. All those in favor? Okay. And we have the strategic action plan motion. So moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Deputy Mayor Gierzak, that we receive report 23, strategic action plan prepared by Sonny Watson, and doing so adopts the 2021-25 strategic action plan to allow staff to proceed with the inclusion of departmental assignment and key performance indicators prior to final approval. Okay. Questions on the report and the plan? Councillor Adams.
Well, I'm not going to go through what I said at the last meeting, but I'm wondering if you might want to have a different mover. Because frankly, I'm not going to go through what I said the last time, so I'll just leave it at that. But it might make sense to have a different mover.
Well, it's a little bit against procedure. Who wants to? We'll have Dan make the motion. Who wants to second it? Okay, Kim will second it. All right. Okay. All right. Now discussion. Sorry about that, Steve. Okay. Councillor Elphick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had an opportunity following our last meeting to read through the report and read through the actual action plan that's been developed after extensive meetings and consultation that we had with our facilitator. And I found some things interesting. I found some things new that, I actively participated in that input and feedback session that I wasn't aware of where they necessarily came from because I didn't see them or recall them in my notes. But I really just feel that, the plan is not lean and it's not nimble. And that's really what the expectation was when we started this process, that it was going to be a short-term plan that would give some deliverables to staff to have a plan, have sort of a roadmap to go forward. We're already, coming into the fall already of 2021, and this plan is to take us until 2025. So I'll just say that some of the goals and the actions I find quite ambitious, and that I, perhaps would like to see staff almost go back and triage or prioritize, but 1/3 of this report, 1/3 of this plan, where they were really going to focus their energy and time so that we could see some report back, see some return on this plan. Otherwise, I think that it's going to be, largely spent trying to move a very large, machine as the municipal organization that we are, to try to reach some of these goals. And some of them I think are happening regardless of this plan or not. And it doesn't really leave a lot of room for us to adapt to, expansive residential growth. Or infilling of East Ridge Business Park. There just seems to be a lack of recognition for us to adapt as a municipality, and I thought that was missing from the report, despite being raised several times with the facilitator. So those are my comments. I'm lukewarm on the report and the plan as it is. I think that it's too exhaustive, it's too comprehensive, and it's far beyond what I understood us to be embarking upon, and that it should be really shrunken down and really clear about what we expect our staff to accomplish in the next 3.5 years.
Okay. Any further comments? Any rebuttals to that? Okay, Deputy Mayor Gierzak.
Thank you, Mayor Peabody. And I'd just like to say that it has been a pretty extensive review, and I've criticized it in the past for being overly tactical as opposed to a little bit more strategic. And having said that, I'm very confident that what staff has put forward is something that they believe in. And our task then is to support them in achieving that ambitious task. The devil is in some of the details, I believe, with respect to the key performance indicators. But I certainly applaud staff for being aggressive and ambitious in this report, and certainly will support them in achieving it. So, and I do believe, having said that, that all plans are meant to adjust to whatever changes in the world. We can't anticipate that over the next 6 months, 12 months, 24 months. So I would anticipate that if some of those key performance indicators aren't going to be achievable for things that we can't foresee at this time, that staff will come back to us and make those recommendations and work with us to establish those changes in direction. So anyway, I support it, and again, applaud staff. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Lifeso.
Just a couple things. First of all, this actually, we had input into it. It was our last meeting with the planner or the consultant, where we went through all these things and we didn't vote to kick any of them out. So I do agree that it's ambitious, which is always good, I think. But at the same time, I don't think we can expect staff to take things out that we basically said we wanted in. So if it's too ambitious, that's our fault. And like I say, when we went through it, my concern when we went through it was the cost, the time, and these are all wonderful things. But it's up to us as part of the policy to say, no, we don't want that particular item. And I don't think we did that because everybody agreed they were good goals. As always, I'm interested in what the KPIs will be. Because I think that's, I mean, these are really good general objectives. And I don't think anybody would say that any of them are a bad thing or shouldn't be done. But again, the reality is it's the implementation will be the key part to it. And short of us picking out, you know, a number of things we don't want done or don't think should be part of the strat plan, it's not up to council to do that. The other thing is I wanted to address Councillor Adams' comments from the last meeting, particularly with respect to the roads. And my understanding is I think one of our very first meetings, when we were talking about it, we agreed that roads would not be mentioned because they're a core function. And the strat plan really wasn't dealing with stuff that we had to do. We know what we have to do. It's just what are the, I don't want to say the options, but maybe the wants going forward as opposed to the needs. I may have misunderstood, but that's why there wasn't a lot of work put in on about roads, because that was one of the basics that just has to be done.
Okay. All right, so we've got the motion before us then. We've got some concerns about the ambitious nature of it, but and then some support. So I guess we'll call the question. Ms. Watson?
Sorry, it was on mute. Through you, Mayor Peabody, yeah, I would just comment, you know, it is an ambitious plan. There's no question. We have a lot going on in our community, and, you know, as we went through it, you know, we were all in attendance at, or most of it, majority were in attendance at that meeting and went through every item. We did take that approach. This is council's plan with staff analyzing, you know, whether we have the finances and ability to invoke these things, and we didn't take anything off the list that council didn't wish to be there. So there was maybe some rewording done and analyzing whether we could do it, but yeah, I did not feel that was our job for this plan to remove items that were council's desire to implement. So our staff, senior management have reviewed it. You know, we're comfortable with it. We'll continue to provide updates. We'll go through now and assign staff and look at establishing the KPIs and bring that back to council. But we are in support of this plan and council's desires to move forward with these actions.
Okay, we'll call the question then. All those in favor? Okay, opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. BIA member feedback. Moved by Deputy Mayor Gierzak, seconded by Councillor Hutchin, that we receive report 2021-33 Walkerton BIA member feedback prepared by Fiona Hamlin, clerk for information purposes, and accepts the status quo of the geographic limits of the Walkerton BIA and directs staff to support the BIA board of directors until outstanding pending vacancies have been filled. Okay, so that report just came in. Any questions? Councillor Hutchin?
I just want to say how surprised I am. I think it's wonderful that we have support. It'll be nice moving forward with that knowledge.
Okay. Councillor Adams?
Yeah, just as I had mentioned before, I think it's great that we're being supportive and helpful, and we need to. We need a strong business community, and I know the people at BIA are doing their absolute best. The question I have though is, do we have any estimate of how long staff will be doing some of the administrative tasks that we're doing today? Is it 6 months, a year? What is the time frame estimate at this point? And will we have to hire any extra bodies to accommodate it?
Through you, Mayor Peabody, I think the intention would be, because the BIA is a separate corporate body, is that we would withdraw from doing those administrative tasks as soon as possible. But I suspect that that's going to take a fair bit of time because there are some larger strategic questions that do need to be answered by the BIA in terms of, what is the best staffing model for them to adopt. And so I think there's going to still need to be some support for the board while they work through some of those questions and complete, a full recruitment cycle to make sure there's the right person in place to suit their needs. And this is also a very critical time from a finance perspective as we're moving into the next budget. And of course that the BIA budget will need to be presented to the members prior to it being recommended to council. So there will be a need to have a general meeting of the members as well. So they'll need to have some support in making sure that some of those basic functions happen. So I would suspect that there will still be some administrative support occurring for the remainder of this year. And the hope would be that maybe we'd be in a position to see the BIA accomplishing the strategies that they decide upon this year and really beginning to thrive again at the beginning of next year.
Thank you, Fiona.
That's what I would suspect might be the case, but I don't know, but that's certainly what I'm hope is that we can kind of still help support them in their major tasks that I know are time sensitive, and then hopefully allow them to direct their ship again when they have the right staffing in place.
Okay. Yes, the amount of staff support that we've given is quite significant. So the report's very accurate. We need to wean the BIA off of that because it is costing us a lot in terms of our staff time. So that really can't continue in the so even though this says status quo, I don't think the status quo of the operation is acceptable. It does need to pare itself down. I would expect to see a budget presented, which would go to the members first and then would come to us at budget time. That budget would be cut because I don't think the full-time staff person is sustainable, hasn't worked. I'd like to see a lot more money spent on programming, but that will be up to their board. It also doesn't make sense to have such a large board. That's creating a lot of problems with quorum. So although status quo is in the motion, just says geographical limits, but a lot of things still need to be reformed and change. Yes, Fiona?
Yes, through you, Mayor Peabody. I think the purpose of the vote, and I think what's encouraging is that we, ask the business community, have we got the basic structure right here? And I think, we've answered that question and given an opportunity to hear from them. So I think now that we know the basic structure is right, the basic limits are right, it's a much stronger foundation on which to analyze some of those other components. And one of those components might be, okay, so if the basic structure is right, are there tweaks to that governance component that we need to look at? And if council would like some more information about what a revised board could look like, I'd be happy to facilitate that process and bring back some additional information if you think that would be helpful.
Okay, and the other comment I wanted to make was the 30 surveys came back. However, there were some issues with the mail out where, for example, one business where the owner had sold that property. They hadn't been there since 2015. They received the ballot, but it was surprisingly in the new owner's box number that she'd had for 22 years, but it had the old owner's name on it. So I'm not quite sure how those two got merged.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Peabody. We did have some challenges from that perspective, but internally we've reviewed some of the options that are available in our sort of assessment and tax software so that we can create a particular code and help to ensure that we have more accurate record keeping for the particular members of the BIA. In the past, we've often provided a list directly to the staff member of the BIA who's assisted us in vetting it sort of on a yearly basis. That's one of those challenges that we've seen without having that consistent staff person as well. So I think internally we've come up with some different procedures, different coding, a little bit more structure to ensure that we have a better mailing list for those members.
Yeah, so I don't know if the mail out would be a good representation. There were other buildings where there would be 7 tenants and nobody got a ballot. So, and I did try to cover those myself. But having gone door to door to try to address some of those issues, I do know that majority of people don't want to see the BIA dissolved, but they definitely want some reforms coming about with the programming and seeing a little bit more bang for the buck in terms of their levy, in terms of the Christmas promotion and the Christmas market and fall decorating, things like that. Okay, so we have the motion then. All those in favor? Okay, carried. Public notification now. Next Thursday, October 21st at 10 o'clock, there will be a Bruce County official plan update, special council meeting, public meeting for county council. Leaf collection is now started. Leaf collection for Walker and Lake Roslyn Mar Lakes will be on Monday, October 18th. Leaves must be placed in biodegradable craft paper waste bags and placed at the curb. 7. Land disposition, East Ridge. The municipality intends to dispose of 3 acres of lot 25 and 1.7 acres of lot 23 located in East Ridge. On October 26th, council will pass bylaws declaring the property surplus to the needs of the municipality. On to accounts, moved by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Lifeso, that we approve payment in the accounts of the amount of $615,373.37. All those in favor? It's carried. Women's House flag raising, moved by Mayor Gierzak, seconded by Councillor Hutchin. Municipality of Brockton does hereby proclaim November 25th as the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. Whereas violence continues to be the greatest gender inequality rights issue for women, girls, and gender diverse individuals, and whereas November is Women Abuse Prevention Month, and whereas gender-based violence is a human rights issue, which our community must work together to address, and whereas 1 in 3 women will experience gender-based violence in their lifetime, these numbers increase exponentially in Black, Indigenous, and women of color, and whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has increased barriers to support and services for survivors of gender-based violence and their children, and whereas last year in Ontario, every 13 days, a woman or child was killed by a man known to them, with the majority being their current or former intimate partner. Whereas this month, throughout 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, we acknowledge our community support of the Wrapped in Courage campaign and commitment to ending gender-based violence. And whereas November 25th, the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, a Wrapped in Courage 2021 campaign flag will be raised in recognition that the courage of a woman alone is not enough. It takes the entire community to end gender-based violence. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Peabody, municipality of Brockton, proclaim and declare that November 25th shall be known as International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, and urge all citizens to recognize this day, taking action to support survivors of gender-based violence becoming part of Ontario-wide efforts to end gender-based violence. And further, Council Solly Brockton hereby raise the End Gender-Based Violence flag on the community flagpole located at the intersection of Jackson and Yonge for a period of 2 weeks, beginning November 15th and ending on the 26th. All those in favor? Okay. Carried. Since we're on the topic of memorializing violence, and the September 30th, Truth and Reconciliation Day, I thought we had a local group of citizens on their own organized something. It was a great event. I'd also like to commend Pauline Kerr and the Walker Herald Times for their coverage of that day. They did an excellent job bringing a very appropriate mood to the what September 30th means. And going forward, it sets a good template for future years of focusing on truth and reconciliation. On to our information items. Moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Elphick, that we receive all items in section 11. All those in favor? Carried. Our bylaws, moved by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Lifeso, that we authorize the following bylaws be read, enacted, signed, sealed, numbered as followed. Number 132, Brockton Heritage Committee, terms of reference. 133, amend operation of cemeteries bylaw. 134, 2022 fees and changes bylaw. All those in favor? It's carried. Committee minutes, moved by Deputy Mayor Gierzak, seconded by Councillor Hutchin, that we receive the minutes of the following committees under boards as presented. Brockton Heritage, June 7th, Elmwood Community Center Board, September 13th. All those in favor? Carried. And we have a notice of motion on the, you want to withdraw that, Kim? Is that what you're going to do?
I'd like to speak to it first.
Yes. Okay.
I want to table it, but the
Okay.
whole reason I brought this forward was with the bridge in Chepstow nearing completion. The residents are concerned about the speeding. We've really missed it since June. Because there's no stop sign on the Chepstow Road all the way through to Bruce Road 20, it just seems to be a major corridor. And they have no respect for the hamlet. And I know the situation is the same in Cargill. So this is why I suggested we change the stop signs on the Turnip Plant Road. But I had a long conversation with John Strader, and there are several reasons why that road wouldn't fit right now. We would end up having to rebuild that whole road to a higher standard. So what John is going to be doing a report, but in that report, we both feel that purchasing these new solar flashing speed signs, like the ones that were installed on the two hills in Walkerton, purchasing 4 of them, 2 for Cargill and 2 for Chepstow, to go up as soon as possible. And then traffic counts were done about 1.5 years ago, and I would like them to be done again next year to see where the traffic's going. I'm hoping some people will still stay on the Turnip Plant Road, but there are 2 stop signs. If this doesn't work to slow down the traffic, then we will have to look at the option of putting a stop sign in the middle of the hamlet, and the same in Cargill, but I know residents aren't going to want that because of truck noise. So this, I think, is the best solution for now. But I need council support to purchase these 4 units.
Right. So you're making a notice motion to the next meeting. We'll vote on purchasing those 4 units.
Good.
Okay.
I do. Thank
Right.
you.
We'll take that as a notice motion. And then we'll vote on it.
James.
Councillor Lang.
I'll second that notice.
Thank you, James.
Yeah. Okay.
Mayor Peabody?
Yes.
What are we doing with this particular motion then on Side Road 5, Greenock line.
It's tabled.
It's
Well,
tabled or
well,
gonna
it's-
be, does it need to be defeated or?
No, it wasn't. I didn't read it, and
I withdrew it.
Councillor Hutchin has changed and based on feedback from staff and residents, and wants to do the signs instead. The solar signs, as you see on the entrance to Walker.
Which
The
I
cable that comes
know
back,
they
though,
work because it slows me down.
At this time, I believe if this notice, it's not actually the motion. So the motion is not on the table at all. It's not there for a vote. It's just the notice. And Councillor Hutchin has indicated that she's withdrawing that notice in any event. So there is no motion coming forward or to be voted on. The only motion that will come forward is the one at the next meeting, which will be for the purchase of 4 solar powered speed signs. So you can look for that motion on the next agenda. But this motion, as had been proposed with notice, is withdrawn and will go no further until potentially who knows what happens in the future. But hopefully we'll see if this proposed solution works. So the motion that was on the agenda will not be voted on at this time.
So does council require a report from John Strader after what I've just told you?
On Side Road 5 or on Chapstow Cargill Lights?
Chapstow and Cargill Roads.
Yes, on the signs. We'll get a staff report on the signs for the next meeting so we can vote on the costs, the efficiency of them. Okay. All right. Into closed session, moved by Councillor Adams, second by Councillor Elphick, that we move into closed session at 9:26 to address staffing update, proposed or pending acquisition, local board offer, Eastridge Business Park acquisition, Eastridge Business Park offers, and litigation regarding a subdivision matter. Okay. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, so we'll come back after the Okay, looks like people are coming back quickly. Quorum there. Right, so we'll rise and report from our closed session. Moved by Deputy Mayor Gierzak, seconded by Councillor Hutchin, that we approve the direction provided to staff in closed session, and in doing so acknowledge the hiring of Melissa Schmidt as custodial maintenance worker. All those in favor? Carried. Confirmation of proceedings, moved by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Lifeso, that we authorize the following bylaw be read and acted signed till numbered as followed. 135, October 26th, confirmatory bylaw. All those in favor? It's carried. Motion to adjourn at 10:18, moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Elphick. All those in favor? Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
Night, everyone.
Thanks, night.
Good meeting, Mayor. Have a great evening, everyone. Take